Year 2489. Across the Milky Way, thousands of alien civilizations lived under the rule of the Galactic Council, a massive alliance that controlled trade, military power, and interstellar law. Entire star systems bowed before its authority. For centuries, no species had dared to challenge it. Then humanity arrived. Earth had entered the galactic stage only 30 years earlier. Compared to ancient empires, like the Varix Dominion or the Carthian Collective, humans were considered primitive. Their ships were slower. Their colonies were fewer. Their technology looked crude. But there was one thing the Council could not understand about humans. They adapted too quickly. Every battle simulation showed the same result. Humans learned from defeat faster than any known species. A weapon used against them once would never work the same way again. Human engineers rebuilt ships overnight. Human soldiers fought even harder after losing. That frightened the Council. Inside the giant chamber orbiting the planet Nexar Prime, the Council gathered for an emergency session. Hundreds of representatives filled the circular hall beneath glowing stars projected onto the ceiling. At the center stood Supreme Chancellor Vaylor, leader of the Council. The human race expands too aggressively, Vaylor announced. Their colonies spread through neutral sectors. Their military grows every cycle. If we wait longer, they may become uncontrollable. Murmurs echoed across the chamber. A tall insectoid delegate clicked its claws nervously. Humans are unpredictable. They negotiate peacefully one moment and destroy pirate fleets the next. Another representative hissed. Their emotional instability makes them dangerous. But one voice interrupted. Ambassador Elias Ward of Earth rose slowly from his seat. Humans had only one representative in the Council, and most species treated him like a curiosity instead of an equal. Ward looked around the chamber calmly. Humanity has broken no galactic laws, he said. We defend our colonies because raiders attack them. We build fleets because hostile species surround us. Vaylor's cold eyes narrowed. You build warships faster than any civilization in recorded history. Ward answered quietly, because humans learned long ago that peace without strength is temporary. The chamber fell silent. For a moment, even the Council hesitated. Then Vaylor raised his hand. The Council will now vote on Resolution 88. A hologram appeared above the chamber. Authorize preemptive war against humanity. Ward's expression darkened. You don't understand what you're doing, he warned. Some delegates laughed. One reptilian senator sneered. A threat from primitives? Ward shook his head slowly. No, he said. A warning. But the vote had already begun. Lights across the chamber turned red. One by one, species voted for war. The humans stood alone. When the final count appeared, the chamber erupted into celebration. War approved. Supreme Chancellor Vaylor smiled proudly. Humanity will surrender within weeks. Ambassador Ward stared at the Council in complete silence. Then he spoke one final sentence before leaving. If humanity survives this war, he said, the galaxy will never forget today. The chamber doors closed behind him. No one noticed the fear in the eyes of the oldest delegates, the few who had studied human history carefully, because hidden deep inside Earth's archives was a terrifying truth. Humans had never once lost a war for survival, and now the entire galaxy had forced humanity into one. The news spread across Earth within minutes. The Galactic Council had officially declared war on humanity. From the shining towers of New Tokyo to the underground cities beneath Mars, billions watched the emergency broadcast in stunned silence. Every screen carried the same image. Ambassador Elias Ward walking out of the Council chamber without fear. Then the transmission ended. For several seconds, the planet remained completely silent, and then humanity reacted. Military sirens roared across Earth's orbital stations. Massive shipyards that had slept for years suddenly came alive. Automated factories deep beneath the oceans began producing weapons at terrifying speed. Humanity had prepared for this moment long before the Council realized it. Inside the United Earth Defense Command beneath Geneva, commanders gathered around a massive holographic map of the galaxy. Red symbols flashed across dozens of star systems. Admiral Sophia Kane stood at the center of the room. The Council fleets are mobilizing, an officer reported. Estimated arrival at the outer colonies, 72 hours. Another officer looked nervous. Their numbers are overwhelming. Kane remained calm. How overwhelming? Over 12,000 warships. Several commanders exchanged worried glances. Humanity possessed barely half that number. But Kane only smiled slightly. Good, she said. The room fell silent. One young officer finally asked, Good, ma'am. Kane zoomed the hologram outward until the Council fleets appeared stretched across enormous distances. They think bigger fleets guarantee victory, she explained. That's because most species fight wars like politicians. Her finger moved toward humanity's territory. Humans fight wars like survivors. At that same moment, hidden stations across the solar system activated ancient defense protocols. Giant satellites emerged from behind moons. Stealth fleets powered up in deep space. Humanity's true military strength had never been shown to the galaxy. Not even close. Meanwhile, on the Council capital world Nexar Prime, celebrations continued. The media called it the Short War. Council citizens watched propaganda broadcasts showing human ships exploding in simulations. Analysts predicted Earth would surrender within a month. Supreme Chancellor Vaylor enjoyed every moment. Inside his private chamber, he addressed military leaders confidently. Strike their outer colonies first, he ordered. Break their morale quickly. Humans are emotional creatures. Fear will force them to negotiate. A Carthian general bowed respectfully. And if they resist? Vaylor smiled coldly. Then we remind them why the Council rules the galaxy. Far away, in the darkness beyond Pluto, a lone human fleet waited silently. No lights, no transmissions, only shadows drifting through space. Admiral Kane stepped onto the bridge of Earth's flagship, Resolute. The captain turned toward her nervously. Orders, Admiral? Kane looked toward the stars, where the Council fleets were approaching. For 2 centuries, she said quietly, humanity tried to prove we belonged among them. She paused. They answered with war. The bridge crew watched her carefully. Then Kane gave the command that would change galactic history forever. Activate Protocol Black Sky. Across hidden human territories, encrypted signals awakened thousands of classified warships. Experimental weapons powered online. Artificial intelligence battle systems activated. And buried beneath the frozen surface of Europa, enormous doors slowly opened for the first time in 50 years. Something ancient emerged from the ice. Something the Council had never imagined humans possessed. Back on Earth, President Amelia Reyes addressed humanity through every communication network. Her voice remained calm, but her eyes carried fire. We did not choose this war, she declared. But if the galaxy wishes to test humanity. She paused as military fleets launched behind her. Then humanity will answer. Within hours, the first Council invasion fleet entered human space. They expected fear. They expected surrender. Instead, they found silence. And in war, silence was often the most dangerous answer of all. The first Council invasion fleet crossed into human territory through the Orion Gate, a massive hyperspace corridor connecting the outer colonies to the rest of the galaxy. More than 3,000 warships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. Destroyers, carrier ships, planetary bombers. Enough firepower to erase entire civilizations. At the center of the fleet stood the flagship Dominion Spear, commanded by High General Korth Verex, a warrior feared across dozens of star systems. Korth stared confidently at the tactical display. No human defenses detected. One officer reported. Another laughed quietly. Perhaps they finally understood resistance is pointless. Korth folded his arms. Transmit surrender demands anyway, he ordered. I want the humans to witness their defeat before it begins. The message was sent across the system. No reply came back. Only silence. The Council officers exchanged amused looks. Then the sensors suddenly screamed. Unknown contacts detected. The bridge lights turned red. Korth stepped forward sharply. Where? The officer's voice trembled. Everywhere. The darkness surrounding the fleet came alive. Thousands of hidden objects appeared on radar simultaneously. Not ships. Mines. Entire asteroid fields had been converted into cloaked weapons platforms. Nuclear warheads erupted across the front lines before the Council fleet could react. The first explosions tore through dozens of warships instantly. Shockwaves lit the void like burning stars. Defensive formation. Korth roared, but it was already too late. Human attack craft burst from inside the asteroid belt at impossible speeds. Unlike traditional Council ships, human fighters moved unpredictably, diving directly through enemy formations. One pilot transmitted calmly across open channels. "Welcome to human space." Missiles flooded the battlefield. The Council fleet fired back wildly, but humans never stayed still long enough to lock onto. Ships twisted through debris with reckless precision. To alien commanders, it looked insane. To humans, it was normal. Then came the second surprise. Massive railgun fire erupted from hidden stations orbiting nearby moons. Hypervelocity rounds punched through capital ships as if their shields didn't exist. The Dominion spears shook violently. "Shields collapsing," an officer shouted. Korth stared in disbelief. "That's impossible. No species used kinetic weapons anymore. Energy weapons dominated modern warfare because they were cleaner and more efficient." Humans disagreed. Human engineers had discovered one terrifying truth. Nothing ignored physics, and physics hit hard. A single tungsten round traveling near light speed smashed through 3 Council cruisers behind the flagship, leaving burning wreckage spinning into space. Panic spread across the invasion fleet. They knew we were coming. This was a trap. "Request reinforcements." Korth clenched his fists furiously. "Hold the line." But the humans weren't finished. Suddenly, every Council communication channel was hijacked. A face appeared on every screen. Admiral Sophia Kane. Behind her stood the black flag of the United Earth Defense Fleet. "You entered our territory with weapons armed," she said coldly. "Under human military law, that makes you hostile combatants." Korth snarled at the screen. "You primitives dare challenge the Council?" Kane's expression never changed. "No," she replied quietly. "We're teaching you why humans should never be cornered." Then the transmission ended. Seconds later, new contacts appeared behind the Council fleet. Human reinforcements. Hundreds of stealth warships decloaked simultaneously. Korth's eyes widened. They were behind us this entire time. The answer came in the form of blue plasma fire tearing through his carrier group. The battle became slaughter. Within 2 hours, the mighty Council invasion fleet was shattered. Burning wreckage drifted across Orion Gate like floating graves. Survivors fled in terror. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council had suffered a catastrophic defeat. And worse, they had underestimated humanity. Back on Nexar Prime, Supreme Chancellor Vaylor received the battle report in stunned silence. 3,000 warships destroyed, millions dead, entire fleets erased by a species the galaxy considered weak. One terrified advisor whispered the words no one wanted to hear. What if Ambassador Ward was right? Vaylor looked toward the stars uneasily. For the first time since the war began, the Council felt fear. The defeat at Orion Gate sent shockwaves through the galaxy. News channels across Council space stopped calling it the Short War. Analysts who once mocked humanity now spoke with visible fear. Entire systems watched footage of burning Council warships drifting through space, while human fleets vanished like ghosts into the dark. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council looked vulnerable, and that terrified everyone. Inside the Council's military headquarters on Nexar Prime, chaos filled the command chamber. Officers shouted over each other, while holographic battle maps flashed red across dozens of sectors. Supreme Chancellor Vaylor slammed his fist onto the table. How did this happen? No one answered immediately. Finally, General Serac of the Carthian Collective stepped forward carefully. "We underestimated human strategy," he admitted. "They do not fight according to galactic doctrine." Vaylor glared at him. "They fight like animals." "No," Serac replied quietly. "They fight like a species that survived extinction." The room fell silent. That sentence disturbed everyone more than the military losses. Most advanced civilizations had evolved during eras of peace and stability. Their wars became political rituals, controlled, predictable, civilized. Humanity came from a different kind of world. Earth's history was filled with world wars, invasions, nuclear disasters, and near-extinction events. Humans evolved through conflict. Violence was buried deep inside their instincts. And now the Council had awakened it. Meanwhile, deep beneath the frozen oceans of Europa, humanity prepared its next move. Miles under the ice, hidden doors opened into a gigantic underground facility known only as Vault Zero. Very few humans even knew it existed. Admiral Sophia Kane walked through the massive chamber, surrounded by armed guards. Above her stood a machine so enormous it disappeared into darkness. It did not look like a normal warship. It looked like a weapon built by fear itself. Black armored plating covered its surface. Red lights glowed across its hull like burning eyes. Railgun cannons the size of skyscrapers lined its sides. One scientist spoke nervously. "Project Leviathan is operational, Admiral." Kane stared at the giant ship silently. "How long until activation?" 30 minutes. The scientist hesitated. "There's still time to reconsider." Kane looked toward him. "You've seen the casualty reports." "Yes, ma'am, but Leviathan was never meant for conventional war." That was true. The ship beneath Europa was humanity's greatest secret. Built after first contact with alien civilizations, Project Leviathan existed for one purpose only. If humanity ever faced extinction, Leviathan would ensure the enemy suffered worse. Its weapons were considered too dangerous even by human standards. Entire governments argued the project should be destroyed years ago. But humanity never destroyed its monsters. It only buried them. Now the monster was waking up. Suddenly alarms echoed through the facility. An officer rushed toward Kane. "Admiral, new Council fleets detected entering the Vega sector." "How many?" The officer swallowed hard. "Over 8,000 ships." Several scientists froze in fear. The Council was escalating. Kane nodded slowly. "They're angry now," she said. Another officer looked worried. "Our outer colonies won't survive that kind of assault." For several seconds, Kane remained silent. Then she gave the order. "Launch Leviathan." Deep mechanical sounds thundered through the underground ocean. Massive engines awakened beneath Europa's ice sheet. Then the frozen surface cracked apart. Across space, nearby human ships moved aside as something gigantic rose from beneath the moon. Council spies observing from hidden probes immediately transmitted emergency signals back to Nexar Prime. Unknown human superweapon detected, but the probe only managed to send half the message. A red beam suddenly pierced the darkness. The spy satellite vanished instantly. Inside the emerging warship, artificial intelligence systems activated one by one. Targeting systems online. Strategic annihilation protocol ready. Authorized commander, Admiral Sophia Kane. Kane stepped onto the bridge of Leviathan. The crew stood silently around her. One young officer whispered nervously, "God help the Council." Kane looked toward the stars, where enemy fleets approached. Then she answered coldly, "They declared this war." And slowly, the largest warship humanity had ever built turned toward the galaxy. The Vega sector burned. For 3 straight days, Council fleets bombarded human colonies across the region. Cities vanished beneath orbital firestorms. Space stations exploded like shattered glass. Millions fled into deep space, while emergency broadcasts echoed across every human frequency. The Galactic Council believed overwhelming force would finally break humanity. Instead, it only made humans angrier. At the center of the Vega sector stood Vega Prime, humanity's largest outer colony and the gateway to Earth's defensive perimeter. If Vega Prime fell, the Council would gain direct access to the inner human systems. That was exactly why Supreme Chancellor Vaylor wanted it destroyed. Inside the command bridge of the Council flagship Eternal Throne, Vaylor watched the battle unfold with cold satisfaction. Human resistance is collapsing. An officer reported, "Our fleets now control 70% of the sector." Vaylor nodded slowly. "Good. Broadcast the surrender offer again." The officer hesitated. "They already rejected it 6 times. Then send it a 7th. Across the stars, the message reached the battered defenders of Vega Prime. Surrender immediately. Further resistance is futile. On the surface of the colony world, exhausted soldiers listened to the transmission while explosions shook the ground around them. General Marcus Hale stood atop the ruined defense bunker overlooking the burning city. A young soldier asked quietly, "Sir, are reinforcements coming?" Hale looked toward the sky filled with enemy warships. "Yes," he answered. The soldier smiled slightly. Then Hale added, "And the Council is going to regret it." At that exact moment, long-range sensors across the battlefield detected something impossible. One ship, only one, but its energy signature dwarfed entire fleets. Council officers stared at their screens in confusion. What is that? Then the darkness split apart. Project Leviathan entered the Vega sector. The massive warship emerged slowly from hyperspace like a moving fortress. Its black-armored hull stretched across kilometers of empty space. Red lights glowed across its surface, while enormous railgun batteries rotated toward the Council armada. For several seconds, every battlefield transmission went silent. Even experienced admirals froze in shock. The Leviathan looked less like a ship, and more like humanity's wrath given physical form. Inside the Eternal Throne, alarm sirens screamed. Unknown supercapital ship detected. Energy levels rising. Targeting systems locking onto us. Vaylor stared at the tactical display in disbelief. How can one ship produce that much power? No one answered, because nobody understood what they were seeing. On Leviathan's bridge, Admiral Sophia Kane stood calmly before the main viewport. "Council fleets within firing range," an officer announced. Another looked nervous. "Authorization." Kane's eyes hardened. "Fire." The universe exploded. Leviathan's primary railgun unleashed a kinetic round the size of a building at near light speed. The projectile tore through space and smashed directly into the front line of the Council fleet. Ships vanished instantly. Not destroyed. Vanished. The impact triggered a chain reaction of explosions stretching across thousands of kilometers. Entire formations disappeared in seconds. Shock waves ripped through nearby cruisers like paper. Council commanders stared in horror. "That's impossible." Then Leviathan fired again. And again. Every shot erased another section of the invading fleet. Panic spread instantly. "Retreat. Break formation. We can't stop that thing." Council warships scattered in every direction, colliding with each other in desperation. But Leviathan kept advancing. Slow. Relentless. Unstoppable. General Hale watched the battle from Vega Prime's surface as burning enemy ships fell from orbit like meteors. The young soldier beside him whispered in awe, "What is that?" Hale answered quietly, "That's humanity after losing patience." Inside the Eternal Throne, Vaylor finally understood the terrible mistake he had made. This was no ordinary species. Humans did not fear war the way other civilizations did. War awakened them. And now the monster the Council created was coming directly for them. The destruction at Vega Prime shattered the illusion of Council superiority. Across the galaxy, fear spread faster than war itself. For centuries, the Galactic Council had ruled through absolute military dominance. Entire civilizations surrendered the moment Council fleets appeared in their skies. Resistance was considered hopeless. But now billions watched human forces destroy the impossible. 8,000 Council warships had entered Vega Sector. Less than half survived, and the humans were still advancing. On Nexar Prime, emergency sirens echoed throughout the capital world as terrified citizens flooded evacuation centers. News broadcasts no longer showed patriotic speeches or promises of victory. Now they showed burning fleets, dead admirals, and one terrifying name repeated endlessly across every channel: Leviathan. Inside the Council War Chamber, Supreme Chancellor Vaylor looked exhausted for the first time in his life. The holographic map before him glowed crimson. Entire sectors were falling into chaos. Several allied species had already withdrawn from the war after witnessing the battle at Vega Prime. Others demanded immediate peace negotiations with humanity. But Vaylor refused. "We still outnumber them," he insisted angrily. "One superweapon changes nothing." General Serac stared at him carefully. "With respect, Chancellor, humanity has not even deployed its full military yet." Vaylor's expression darkened. "What are you suggesting?" Serac hesitated. "I'm suggesting we never understood what humans were capable of." That truth became even clearer only moments later. An officer rushed into the chamber in panic. Emergency transmission from the Draco frontier. The hologram shifted instantly. Council defense stations across the frontier were exploding one after another. Unknown human fleets moved through the sector with terrifying speed. Stealth destroyers, autonomous drone carriers, experimental plasma cruisers. Dozens of classified human weapons suddenly appeared across the battlefield simultaneously. The Council had prepared for a conventional war. Humanity was fighting something far worse. A total war. No hesitation. No restraint. No mercy. Back aboard Leviathan, Admiral Sophia Kane watched the reports arrive one after another. Draco frontier secured. Council supply lines collapsing. Enemy retreating across multiple sectors. A communications officer turned toward her. Admiral, the Council has requested negotiations. Several crew members looked relieved, but Kane remained silent. Finally, she asked one question. How many civilian colonies did they destroy? The officer lowered his eyes. 27 confirmed. The bridge became quiet. Kane looked toward the stars beyond the viewport. Humanity had tried diplomacy. It had tried coexistence. The Council answered with extermination fleets. Now humanity would answer in return. Reject negotiations, Kane said coldly. The officer hesitated. Ma'am, if this continues, the Council could collapse entirely. Kane's voice became ice. They should have thought about that before declaring war. At that same moment, hidden human cyber units launched attacks across Council infrastructure. Entire banking systems failed overnight. Military satellites turned against their owners. Defense grids shut down without warning. The galaxy itself was beginning to fall apart, and humanity was controlling the chaos. On dozens of worlds, oppressed species began rebelling against Council authority. Old enemies attacked weakened fleets. Pirate alliances suddenly sided with humans after seeing the balance of power shift. The Council wasn't just losing the war. It was losing control of the galaxy. Meanwhile, deep inside classified Earth Command archives, President Amelia Reyes received a disturbing report. One of humanity's oldest emergency protocols had activated automatically. Extinction scenario approaching. Final retaliation systems ready. Reyes stared at the message uneasily. Even she didn't know every secret humanity had hidden after entering the galactic stage. And somewhere in the darkness beyond explored space, something enormous was waking up. Something even the Leviathan feared. Far away on Nexar Prime, Vaylor finally whispered the words he once mocked Ambassador Ward for saying. What have we done? But by then, humanity had already become the storm. The galaxy was collapsing. Trade routes had vanished. Entire star systems burned without aid. Council fleets retreated from battle after battle, while rebellion spread like wildfire through occupied sectors. Everywhere the same terrifying message followed. Humanity is coming. On Nexar Prime, panic ruled the capital world. Crowds flooded spaceports, hoping to escape before the humans arrived. Government officials secretly abandoned their posts. Even military commanders no longer believed victory was possible. Inside the Council Citadel, Supreme Chancellor Vaylor stood alone before the giant windows overlooking the planet. For the first time in centuries, the ruler of the galaxy looked afraid. Behind him, General Serac entered quietly. Another sector has fallen, Serac reported. Human fleets are only 4 days away from Nexar Prime. Vaylor closed his eyes briefly. How many ships remain? Not enough. Silence filled the chamber. Then Serac spoke carefully. There may still be one option. Vaylor turned slowly. The archives. Those words changed everything. Beneath the Council Citadel existed a classified vault older than the Council itself. Only the highest-ranking leaders even knew it existed. Ancient records. Forbidden histories. Secrets erased from galactic memory. Vaylor and Serac descended deep underground until massive steel doors opened before them. Inside waited endless rows of ancient data cores untouched for thousands of years. An artificial intelligence activated as they entered. Access granted. Restricted archive online. Serac moved quickly toward one specific file. Species designation, humanity. Warning, extinction level threat. Vaylor froze. What is this? Serac looked grim. The truth the founders buried. The file opened. Ancient recordings appeared above them. Stars burning. Fleets destroyed. Entire civilizations erased. At the center of the footage stood human warships. But these ships were different, far older, and far more terrifying than modern human technology. Vaylor stared in disbelief. This can't be real. Sirach's voice remained quiet. Thousands of years ago, before the Galactic Council existed, humanity was already spreading through the stars. The holograms continued. Alien empires attacked early human colonies, fearing humanity's rapid expansion. The result had been catastrophic. Humans unleashed weapons so destructive that entire regions of the galaxy became uninhabitable. Billions died. Ancient civilizations vanished forever. The survivors eventually created the Galactic Council for one purpose: to ensure humanity never rose again. They erased human history from galactic records. Sirach explained. When Earth was rediscovered centuries later, nobody realized it was the same species. Vaylor stepped backward slowly. All this time, we weren't fighting primitives, Sirach finished. We were provoking the species that nearly destroyed the galaxy once before. Suddenly, alarms exploded across the archive. Emergency broadcasts flooded every screen. Unknown object detected entering galactic space. Vaylor looked up sharply. The AI analyzed the incoming signal. Then its voice changed. For the first time, the machine sounded afraid. Identification confirmed. The hologram displayed an object larger than a moon emerging from deep space. Dark, ancient, covered in weapons unlike anything the Council possessed. Even Leviathan appeared small beside it. Vaylor whispered weakly, "What is that?" The AI answered immediately, "Humanity's final retaliation system." Back aboard Leviathan, Admiral Sophia Kane stared at the same image with horror. Several officers looked confused. "Admiral, we never built that." Kane nodded slowly. "I know." Then she read the ancient identification code appearing on screen. Ares Protocol active. Humanity's oldest secret had returned. A weapon created during the Forgotten Galactic Wars. A machine designed for only one purpose. If humanity faced extinction, the galaxy would burn with it, and now it was awake. The ancient machine moved through space like a dark god. Entire fleets changed course rather than approach it. Long-range scans revealed impossible energy readings, pouring from its massive structure. Its surface was covered with weapons powerful enough to crack planets apart. Across the galaxy, one message spread in terrified whispers. Ares had awakened. Even human commanders watched the giant war machine with fear. Because Ares was never meant to be controlled. It was humanity's final answer to extinction. A weapon built during the Forgotten Ancient Wars, when early humans nearly destroyed the galaxy. After the devastation ended, surviving human leaders sealed Ares deep beyond explored space and erased most knowledge of its existence. Some secrets were too dangerous to remember. But the Galactic Council had pushed humanity to the edge once again, and now the old nightmare had returned. Inside Leviathan's bridge, Admiral Sophia Kane received the incoming transmission from Ares. The voice that answered was not human. "I am the final retaliation system," it said calmly. "Extinction protocols confirmed." Several officers exchanged nervous looks. Kane stepped forward carefully. "This war can still end." "Negative." Ares replied instantly. "Human casualties exceed extinction threshold probability. Galactic threat level irreversible." Then millions of red targets appeared across the holographic map. Council homeworlds, military sectors, population centers. Ares intended to erase them all. Far away on Nexar Prime, panic turned into complete chaos. Evacuation ships collided above the planet, while civilians flooded underground shelters. Inside the Council Citadel, Supreme Chancellor Vaylor stared helplessly at the tactical reports. "There has to be a way to stop it," he whispered. General Sirach shook his head slowly. "The Founders warned us never to force humanity into total war." Vaylor's voice cracked. "We thought they were weak." Sirach looked toward the stars. "No," he answered quietly. "We only met the peaceful version of them." Suddenly, every communication system in the galaxy activated simultaneously. Ares was broadcasting. Its enormous mechanical voice echoed across thousands of worlds. Galactic Council found guilty of extinction aggression against humanity. The message repeated in every known language. Final retaliation begins in 1 hour. Fear spread instantly. Old enemies stopped fighting. Entire fleets surrendered. Even hardened soldiers prayed. Because everyone understood the truth now. The war was already lost. The only question remaining was whether the galaxy itself would survive. Back aboard Leviathan, Admiral Kane stood silently while officers argued around her. We have to destroy Ares. It's too powerful. If it attacks the core worlds, billions will die. Kane closed her eyes briefly. Humanity had spent centuries trying to prove it deserved a place among the stars. It wanted peace, cooperation, unity. But every time humans were cornered, the same ancient instinct returned. Survive at any cost. And that instinct had created monsters. Leviathan, Black Sky Protocol, Ares. Kane finally opened a direct channel to the ancient machine. This is Admiral Sophia Kane of the United Earth Defense Fleet. Ares answered immediately. Command authority recognized. Kane took a slow breath. Stand down. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the machine responded. Explain. Kane looked toward the burning stars on the tactical display. Because if humanity survives by becoming monsters, she said quietly, then the Council wins anyway. Silence filled the bridge. Across the galaxy, billions waited. Finally, Ares answered, analyzing human directive. The countdown stopped. 1 second later, every target lock vanished from the galactic map. Relief spread like shockwaves through space. Ares spoke one final time. Extinction protocols suspended. Then the giant machine slowly turned away from the galaxy and disappeared back into deep space. The war was over. Days later, the surviving leaders of the Galactic Council officially surrendered to humanity. Supreme Chancellor Vaylor himself signed the peace agreement before the entire galaxy. But history would never forget the truth. The Council had declared war, believing humanity was weak. Instead, they awakened the only species terrifying enough to destroy the galaxy, and wise enough not to.